welcome to the session and hope we learn a lot from you. I just want to introduce Ankur. He has done he's an alumni from NID and he did his post graduation in education from UCL, which is in London. And then he has been working in the industry and a few of the educators and different universities. So he has quite a lot of experience with all sorts of life. So here he is to introduce us to whatever he has learned, and we are looking forward to learn from him. Over to you, Ankur. Thank you so much for joining in.
Okay, so first of all, I'm really kind of glad to be connected with a senior bunch of students because from past almost 8-9 years I've been I've been into the education with the younger groups of children, for example grade 7 to 12, and so it's really a kind of great kind of have a sense of perception for me to give you a kind of experience or the knowledge which I have been carrying with me from past many years. But the only thing is, what we have studies as an aesthetics and what I have came to know about the aesthetics in Bhutan is totally different. I think that's something which I would like all of you to understand, that aesthetic is way beyond the beauty. So aesthetics in Bhutan, they look aesthetics from 5 perspectives. One is, of course, its physical form, which we call it visual appearance. But here they put more focus on its emotional and spiritual aspect of it, and you can reach to that certain level when your all 5 senses are awakening. You know your 5 senses, right? And those 5 senses are pretty much important in understanding the actual or the real or the pure aesthetic sense. That's what I have discovered here, because having so much of experience when I came here, to make my understanding richer in terms of aesthetics is totally different. So I think there are 2 things we are going to talk about today. Is more than anything, whether we design, whether we do an art, the most important thing to have the mindset for that, right? So we call it that, our aesthetic mindsets, enable us to see the beauty in everyone and everything. For me, aesthetic mindset is there, but for me, beauty may be different. For someone else, it has to be different. It can't be same for everyone, right? Then only we'll be having our inner potential in a real manner. So I feel aesthetic is everywhere. It's in the garbage, it's in the mud, it's in the rose flower, it's in the sunflower. But you need to have, we need to have that perception, or we need to perceive aesthetics in all the aspects, not just the beauty. Like I was discussing about my students that what aesthetics to them. So I've came across a lot of interesting examples, right? So one student also told me that art is just to make our walls beautiful. So we had an argument and saying that it's art is beyond that. Similarly, the design, each of these things has to raise a question. They are not just to make our house beautiful or to make our house beautiful. It has to raise a question. It has to raise a curiosity in it. Okay, the moment you are able to see or perceive these things differently, you can see the change in yourself. So that I has to be developed before anything else, and that I will develop with the help of your mindset, the way you perceive things, or the way you think about looking at the nature or the surroundings. So nature is the biggest inspiration, I feel, that for aesthetics. for to have that mindset, you'll get everything from nature. So that's what we work around. Our whole curriculum is designed around the nature. So we don't do our learning experiences, you call it classes, inside the classroom. It's always outside. Okay, so yeah. Uh, Now I have something to share, which I will share it with you, and I will talk more about on that. Exactly. See, my aim is to today's. My aim is to just have at least some understanding. I know you all are MDes and you have your own perception about aesthetics, but some understanding that how we can take it to next level, rather than just thinking or looking at things. We buy a lot of things, for example, when we buy a phone or watch or anything, we go for the appearance and with the user interface and well, right? So that also when these all things makes us feel comfortable or attract, we get attracted toward these, we started liking those objects. Similarly, if you'll see nowadays, those five senses, when we talk about in the aesthetics, if you'll see touchscreen watches are there, so it's all about our touch sense, right? You have a VR system, you have augmented reality, which taking our sight sense to the next level, right? So this is all I think we need to consider. I think five senses we are going to talk about today, that how those five senses can help us to to make our whole understanding about aesthetic in a deeper way. So I will also let me just share one thing so that I should not forget that. So I don't know whether you guys have tried that or not. If you'll take any small stone, right, you'll take a small stone, put it on your palm, and you have to cross your fingers and circulate that stone in between the two fingers. Remember, I mean, you have to do it like this, and you have to circulate the stone. It has to be small, that it should fit between these two gaps, and you just have to close your eyes and do that. You will feel that you have two stones in your hand, not one. And that's because of your touch sense. Both the fingers touch that stone separately, and it sends a message to your brain that we have touched the stone. And it's quite amazing that time you can feel the power of our senses, whether it's touch or it's smell or other instances. Yeah, so let me just take it to my presentation. So when I think when uh, let me just tell you that it's totally my perception, my understanding about aesthetics, and I feel that everyone should have their own understanding, but I'm just sharing my understanding, right? So when someone talks about to me about aesthetics, so there are three things which comes to my mind instantly. That is sense of beauty, bonding, and feelings. And more importantly, it's a mindset. And when you have understanding, when you know the sense of beauty or bonding or feelings, that mindset will automatically take a place. And how do you how do you take these things forward? I mean, for example, when we say sense of beauty, bonding, feelings, in aesthetic there has to be joy, there has to be, whatever we do, there has to be sense of purpose, mastery. More importantly, student must be the teachers and teachers must be the learners. That is what I feel, a whole mindset of aesthetics changes. And of course, engage with its surrounding community. uh, as I also shared in my learning, that it's a learning process to enhance learners understanding the meaning of seeing beauty in everyone and everything, and how we can do that actually. It's I mean, people sometimes it's hard to understand also that you cannot see beauty in everyone and in everything, but there is a, I mean, if you train our mind in certain way. So for example, if you have a product which is uncomfortable to you, so there is an aesthetic, right? There is a scope of aesthetic. There is an aesthetic, but there is a scope to improve that aesthetic, but still aesthetics is there. Similarly, if you like something, you appreciate that. So we say everything has its negative and positive, everything has its drawbacks and pros and cons. So that's what I also see, that whether it's something is uncomfortable to me, so I see that in scope of aesthetics. So there are two ways of understanding understanding the mindset of aesthetics. One is experiencing the known. I call it baseline. To first see where I am, right? So we need to see, reflect upon our own life experience, skills, process, and watermarks. Watermarks is basically, what is the outcome of that. So we need to first see that what we know and what we understand about beauty, right? For example, we talking about a person sitting under a tulip, or any other an apple tree, a person selling. I saw one example, a real life example. There was a beautiful apple tree, and one person was dealing into the waste material. But both things are contrast to each other. But if we'll say that, even if you'll find a painter, you'll find an artist, writer, anything, they'll find that as an inspiration to write, to paint, to do a lot of things with that, contrast things. So aesthetics is there. Okay, so we're talking about experiencing the known, right, and experiencing the new. I think we should always go, beyond our thought process to achieve or to learn certain new things, right? Till the time, as someone said that, no one knows if an idea, a line, or sentence, or a path is worth following until you follow it and see where it leads. So that is most important thing. We should not restrict ourselves to see the beauty in the rose flower. We should go down to see, it has, what do you call, uh, it has a lot of components which are making it a rose flower. So what are those components that will give us a real sense of aesthetic, right? Whether it's smell, right? Whether it's the shape, or whether it's the kind of, what do you call, bees or butterflies, or, these insects, which particularly comes for the rose flower. So I think more than that, more than the rose flower is, of course, is given, to the lot of occasions and things like that. You have different connotations to that, but there are certain things which makes it a rose flower. So we need to go deeper into our understanding of beauty. So this is, I think I really like this example of Marshall Duchamp fountain, right? So he says that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? That's what I was trying to tell you. Even the very interesting point he makes is that if anyone can be an artist, then anything can be an art. So this was the most controversial, an art piece by him. Uh, so this was an exhibition, and he was the first one to bring in an object, man-made object, to an exhibition place. And I am not sure whether you have, some of you must have, read about it and you've seen this one. So the title which he has given to this particular sculpture was a fountain. I mean, if you'll see, and he says that, once he has decided about the subject and the context, when it's going together, then it started making sense. Okay, so it's very creative, but still, if you'll see, people will find no aesthetic sense in it, but there'll be some who will be find an aesthetic sense in it, not looking at the object, but looking at the context from where it has been, grown, the idea. Similarly, it's a very, that's kind of an example which is, what do you call, which some people may not agree, but I put this example also to make us understand, what we perceive in aesthetic. So it's the same thing, same product. It's one is functional, usability, we say, and another is versus is aesthetic usability, right? It's the same thing, but yes, the change of form, visual appeal, the touch, and everything, gives you a total, takes you to the different level. Okay, so these are the things. I'm not going to go into the deep, but I'm going to talk about when we say that, aesthetic mindset, it should come from our, within ourselves. It need not have to be just reflect on our design or on our, it should reflect on our overall behavior, the how we dress up, how we talk, right? How is our body language to someone? I think how we are communicating, this all, comes under aesthetic. So there's one basic example. If you'll see that in Orange Keep Think Fresh, I mean, we have a lot of things in our home to display, right? So what we do is we can, familiarize ourselves with the things that are normal, right? But when you start looking at the same things in a different way, okay, then I think, the real understanding of aesthetics, builds in you. So you when you concern about its feel, where when we put certain things in a house, so we take consider a lot of things, how it will look, whether, it will be visible from here, if someone wants to touch, feel. So as I'm telling again and again, our five senses are very important in developing our mindset for the aesthetic. Okay, now experiencing the thing in itself, this is something so I'm going to talk about these three things which is very much here in Bhutan, whether it's a school, a college, or anyone. I think this is there in everyone. So as Oscar Wilde said, that all art is quite useless. We appreciate beautiful things not for their practical purpose only, but also for what they are in themselves. For example, the example gives you a lot of clarity what he's trying to say. Shadows play no function and yet can be beautiful. The beautiful mood of summer is totally different than the winter, yet both can be equally be savored. So, right. So what I'm trying to say that aesthetics is beyond our, what we see, without beyond our visual thing. So as he said that, shadows, of course, are beyond something. We see the body first, then the shadow. Okay, so yeah. So now, second is everything is impermanent. That's from the Buddhist perspective. This Buddhist teaching recognize attachment as the origin of suffering. Here we say that everything is impermanent. So we need to see aesthetic from that perspective as well. Like the objects or whatever we design. Even someone was sharing this for the Apple product also, right? So design comes in, so they keep changing their design. So I was hearing some webinar, and they shared this example that it's a key line for Apple to design their products. The emptiness of self, it's again important aspect of aesthetic. Like, I think Buddhism is more focused on to the other aspects rather than the visual of aesthetics. So which is why people are, if you try to read about the understanding of Bhutan on aesthetics, you'll see that they have a total different understanding about aesthetics what we do it in India or somewhere else. So which actually helps me to go deeper into my ideas, deeper into my understanding, so that you can come up with something which is, of course, visual. It'll be there, but it has to, that product or that design should have the soul, and that soul will emerge when you considering the other aspects of the aesthetics. Okay, so now I think it's almost 25 to 30 minutes. So there is one interesting, exercise, an activity, small, quick activity for all of you. Are you guys able to see these four images?
Yes.
There are
Yes,
these
sir.
four. Then there's one. Wait. Okay. So I think let us do one thing. Can you all just look at these four images and choose whatever image you want to choose? Okay. And simply after looking at the image, I want all of you to just feel that you are there, right? Just close your eyes for a minute. You have your pen, your pencil, and paper with you. Just write down on your senses that which of your sense is most awakening at that time. Whether it's a smell, whether it's a sight or feel or anything. Okay, is that clear? Even in architecture, I think I chance to meet, uh, a chance to meet Michael. I mean, I forgot his second name, but yeah, Michael. But he introduced uh, me to this exercise, and it's so kind of, it's awaken your senses. You're not there, but it will make more impact when you are seeing these images on a big screen on a projector, and you're just sitting, relaxing, listening to the sounds. And I can make sure that, if you're designing some products, if you're designing some architecture, if you're doing some architecture, so I think, and the space, and if you can be into that space and think for your design, I can assure you that, you'll be in the you'll be getting the most out of the box ideas and creative thinking in your head at that time, if you're just following the process. Now, yeah. So this was the another one. It's again from, I think I've taken this image from Hyderabad, right? When you see those images, so what sort of sounds and voices, and what people are talking, the food, different type of food. If you're getting a push, how you're feeling. Similarly for this image, if you walk into a mango orchard, how feeling would be. Okay. Uh, I think what image is there on the right?
Yeah,
You know
it's
who?
like petals on the floor.
Yeah. So do you know whose work is this?
Kids,
Huh?
not sure really.
So it's Andy Verol. Andy he's a sculptor and he's a designer too. He only works with the natural material. It's nothing, it's everything is, which is, you can see it's not the paint, the yellow thing. It's all natural. So he works with the natural thing. He creates beautiful, amazing design patterns or art elements within the nature. Okay, so I would just like to I would just like to say two things here before we will start a discussion on this. Like, as humans, we are programmed to be attracted to what we find beautiful, which is very true. Something shiny and something pretty will always catch your eye and sustain your interest. That's what we were talking about when I shared an example of phone or watch or whatever. I think it's just our way. We are drawn to things that satisfy our senses, right? So we go by our senses, and for aesthetic mindset, we have to go beyond those senses. So we need to understand the context behind any object or anything which you are liking it. Okay, but what this was also there in the Marshall Duchamp's work. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So he's asking, isn't it? That's what we hear so often in life, and yes, it's true. Which is why designers think about who are going to be behold their designs when they design. The design ideas don't stop at just with something looks. Adding appealing aesthetics to design or creating a design with aesthetic in mind means creating a ways that please as many senses as possible. Okay. See, there are a lot of things in aesthetic mindset when we talk about, there are a lot of things which comes together. With some we may agree, with some we may not agree. And I believe that this should be the way. If we are agreeing to something, altogether, then I think there is a problem. Right? So disagreement has to be there, agreement has to be there, but in a different connotations. So I think this is all from my side. If anyone needs to have any clarification or anything regarding aesthetics, design, or so I would be more than happy to answer that. I will try my best.
So if anyone has any question, we can take that. Yeah, Madhukar.
So Ankur, I had this one question regarding like how much it is important to understand aesthetic when you're designing a product. So what does a value contain while you're in the initial stage, and what percentage it should be while you're initiating the whole ideation and everything?
So I'll share one example. So recently, I think I was reading somewhere in Switzerland or Finland or Norway, somewhere there is a viewpoint. Okay, there is a beautiful viewpoint, and that viewpoint, a person who has designed the railing, the safety barrier, that railing has a
Rail.
brave description of the view, right? So, I mean, if you'll see aesthetics in understanding the view, and there was a need also, right? So there is it's a simple railing, right? There is no aesthetic. But if you'll see all the view, the beauty which is there in front of those mountains, they have incorporated for someone to understand or to feel or to, to be in that scenario. So for your, I mean, I'm just giving an example. So what I'm trying to say is when we think about any product, I think, of course, first we have to follow the process. We need to get into that, right? What we exactly want, right? But when we are clear that this is what we are going to do, that time we should explore the different aspects of aesthetics. Like the way, in few of slides, everyone is saying that, once we are designing something, we should consider putting different senses all together, which makes a product successful. So let me just give you an example of Apple. Why people are Apple or OnePlus, let's say, right? I mean, why these things, or there are more products like these which are popular? Because Apple give you, I mean, for some people they say that, because I have done some research on that. So some people say that, the touch like Apple, they cannot feel in any phone. Even the visual appearance, if you'll see the shape, right, if you'll see the whole form, it suits your eye. Similarly for OnePlus, when one of my students were working on this project, so they have this similar kind of feeling in those things. That's what, when 2 or 3 senses comes to any product, it makes more appealing. And it's make the product more appealing. That's why we are more attracted towards those products. That's what I think, I've been getting a lot of these things from students who are working on some product development, and they do these research, and these kinds of findings when came in, then we also try to make them understand that it's more than that. You also need to go into the soul of aesthetics. It can't be just physical form of it. Yeah. When you're designing something for the community, of course, you have to understand their, their requirement and their beliefs, their, values, tradition, because it's designed for a certain community. Okay. But I feel aesthetics could be in terms of, it need not have to be that, like the way I said, it need not have to be look fancy, it need not have to be look beautiful, it need not have to be, in that ways. But like the way I shared example, that railing was designed for certain community, which is which is getting them into a different level. Right. So if you're considering that which is much needed, and you are giving that in a particular form, so then which means you have considered aesthetic beyond that, right? You have touched the soul of that thing. You've touched the soul of that idea.
Okay, Ankur. So I think you explained it everything in such a good manner that everyone's doubt is clear. So I would like.
Or is the vice versa? Even, I mean,
No, no, no.
it's so
It's
long
not like.
just
No,
speaking and
the session
speaking.
was like really truly
Yeah.
fruitful. We learned a lot. Before, the perspective of
No,
aesthetics were truly different from what we have grasped today. So it has been a great learning.
yeah. No, I know that. Thank you so much for giving an opportunity to connect with you all.
And thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule and coming and giving time to us.
No,
It's really
thank you.
helpful. Like it was really like you have given different perspective to see design and aesthetic. Like you have added a different flavor was. So
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, because that is the thing. If you can put one, if you can just take 1% from this learning, to look at aesthetic, I think things are going to change.
yes.
Yeah.
And it will definitely help us in the future. So anyone wants to thank Ankur, they can type in the chat or they can just unmute yourself. And once again, Ankur, thank you so much for
Thank you
coming.
so much. Looking for more such interactions.